Welcome to 5 Success Strategies for African American Research, post-1865, presented by Lynn Rasmussen and Julia Anderson. We are so glad you could join us today.
Hi, my name is Lynn Rasmussen. I'm a United States and Canada Research Specialist at the Family Search Library. I'm a certified genealogist with a degree in family history from Brigham Young University. I specialize in Southern states, African American research, and Native American research.
My name is Julia A. Anderson. I'm an accredited genealogist in the United States Gulf South region, and I have a master's degree in history. I'm a full-time United States and Canada research specialist at the Family Search Library in Salt Lake City, and I am currently serving as the first vice president of the Utah Genealogical Association. I'm also a genealogy instructor for Salt Lake Community College. Our objectives for this presentation are to review the standard research process, illustrate 5 success strategies for African American research, and enable you to find your African American ancestors. The standard research process can be broken down into 5 simple steps. The first is to gather known information. To do this, start with what you already know. Write down stories or family traditions you remember. Collect your photographs and family documents and include things like yearbooks, newspaper articles, and programs for special events. Next, ask your close relatives for stories and traditions they remember. See if they have photographs or family documents they would be willing to share. Ask if you can make copies or take pictures. Then, after checking with your immediate family, reach out to more distant relatives. You never know what family treasures might be hiding in someone else's attic or closet. Always ask for permission to make copies and take photos, and be sure to respect your relatives' privacy. If they are hesitant to share at first, they may agree at a later time, especially if you have something to share with them. Some ideas of things you are looking for in the gathering process are photographs, family Bibles, family letters, newspaper clippings, birth, marriage, or death certificates, funeral programs, and journals or diaries. Second, you should choose a specific research goal. This goal should focus on answering a particular research question. You want your goal to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely, or in other words, SMART. A poor research goal might say, I want to learn all I can about my third great grandmother. On the other hand, a better research goal might say, determine where Jane Smith, who married Ebenezer Howell in 1905 and died on the 7th of March 1943 in Atlanta, Georgia, was born. Third, you will want to find new information to answer your research questions. Use the record finder tables in the Family Search Wiki to decide which records would be best for answering your research question. Then create a research plan to keep you focused and on track. As you look for new information, it is important to record every record you search, including the date, what you were hoping to find, what you found, and what you think it means. You can do this on a research log, in a notebook, or in an electronic spreadsheet. Fourth, you will need to evaluate that new information to see how it fits in with what you already know. Ask yourself these basic questions. To whom does this record apply? What does the information in it mean? Does this evidence fit with what I already know? Is there conflicting data? Can I trust this information? And what clues does this give me for future research? Fifth, you should share the new information you have found. You can share your research in many ways, by writing a report or journal article, on a blog, social media, at a family reunion, or anywhere else. I find that the more information I share with others, the more they share with me.
We are going to cover 5 success strategies for researching your African American ancestors. Success strategy number 1 is to go from the known to the unknown. You want to start with the most recent records and work back in time. For instance, I might start with my ancestor's death record, then search census records during her lifetime, then find her marriage record, and then a birth record. It is also important to verify all family traditions and information received from others, including what is posted online or printed in any books. Let's look at the example of James Jumper. According to his death certificate, he died in Henry County, Virginia on the 5th of February, 1916. Clues in the document state that he was born in about 1878, possibly in Henry County, Virginia. And his parents were reportedly Dick Jumper and Phyllis Meadows, both from Henry County. With this and other information I collected, I can locate James with his family in the 1910 United States Census. At that time, he lived in Rockingham County, North Carolina. Let's look a little closer. Here's James with his wife Eliza and 7 children: George, Gracie, Nancy, Lula, Mary, Adeline, and Rebecca. Now we go back 10 more years to the 1900 United States Census. Here, James and Eliza were listed in Henry County, Virginia, with 3 children: George, Gracie, and Willie. Because the record states that James and Eliza had been married for 6 years, I have a time frame in which to look for their marriage record. Also, because Willie was not listed on the later census record when he would have been 11 years old, there is a possibility that he died between 1900 and 1910. That leads me to look for records documenting his death. Next, located the marriage record for James Jumper and Eliza Turner in Henry County, Virginia on the 6th of August, 1896. The record notes that at the time of their marriage, James was 21 years old and Eliza was 18. Both husband and wife were born in Henry County. And James' parents were Dick and Phyllis Jumper, while Eliza's parents were named Nelson and Tinsley.
Success strategy number 2 is to search every available record for each of your ancestors' life events. For example, if I wanted to locate or verify death information for my ancestor, I would search for a death certificate, an obituary, a cemetery record, and a funeral program or funeral home records. This would give me a well-rounded picture of the events that happened at the end of my ancestor's life. Here are some examples of a death certificate and an obituary and a cemetery register of deaths. The cemetery record gives the date of the interment, name of the deceased, burial plot, date of death, last residence, cause of death, and even the clergyman in charge of the burial ceremony. There is much more information here than you would find on a typical headstone. Even if your ancestor did not have a headstone, cemetery records can give you this type of evidence. Here are some examples of funeral home records which are located online at Family Search. This is part of a mortician record. This is a burial permit. And here we have a certificate of stillbirth. This is another example of a funeral program. These can contain many clues about the deceased's life and family.
Success strategy number 3 is to find all the known family members. This will help you understand the family structure. Records of family members could also have more information than the records of your ancestors. Siblings of your ancestors are especially important when looking for their parents and grandparents because they usually have the same ones. Let's look at an example of how you can use a sibling to find an ancestor's parents. This is the death certificate of Louisa Cohen Poinsett, who we knew was born in 1877 in South Carolina, and that she had a sister named Jamie. This document notes that her father was Cecil Cohen from Georgetown County, South Carolina, but her mother was unknown by the informant. Searching for records of Cecil Cohen was not very successful, so we expanded our search to Louisa's sister Janie. Here is Janie's death certificate. This document lists her parents as Caesar Cohen of South Carolina and Terry Cohen of South Carolina. I next went to the 1880 census in South Carolina, located Caesar Cohen and his wife Tyra, which is a name similar to Terry, with daughters Louisa and Janie, along with two additional siblings, Rose and Cupid. This confirmed that we had the correct family and helped us find the names and identifying information for Louisa's parents.
Success strategy number 4 is to be aware of name changes. After the Civil War, many African Americans changed their names. Enslavers often shortened the names of those persons they had enslaved or called them only by nicknames. A man named James Robert Jones by his mother might have only been called Jem. After emancipation, choosing a surname was one of the freedoms African Americans experienced. Sometimes they chose their enslaver's surname for convenience, or they chose the surname of a family member's enslaver or a former enslaver. Others chose the surnames of famous people they admired. Be aware that they might have tried one name for a while and then changed to another name, or even switched back and forth between names on different records. Here is an example of some minor name changes for Gabriel Robinson, who was born in 1878. The table includes a list of the records that mention Gabriel and shows how his name alternated between Robinson, Robertson, and Robertson between 1880 and 1963. Be aware of this possibility when looking at records, and do not limit yourself to only those persons with the exact name you think your ancestor used. This is a photograph of Martin Jackson, who had previously been enslaved. In an interview in 1937, he explained how he chose his surname after the Civil War. The master's name was usually adopted by a slave after he was set free. This was done more because it was the logical thing to do and the easiest way to be identified than it was through affection for the master. Also, the government seemed to be in a mighty hurry to have us get names. We had to register as someone so we could be citizens. Well, I got thinking about all us slaves that was going to be taking the name Fitzpatrick. I made up my mind I'd find me a different one. One of my grandfathers in Africa was called Jekio, and I decided to be a Jackson. If you are only looking for this man as Martin Fitzpatrick, it is unlikely that you would find him.
Success strategy number 5 is to study the local history. Migration patterns can give you clues about where your family came from and where they went. Local laws will help you understand why your ancestors did certain things, as well as what records might have been created. Industry and agriculture of the area can help you learn what your ancestors did for work and what their economic situation was like. Folk customs can explain where your family traditions began. And religious beliefs are important and can give you more background on your family's lifestyle. Local entertainment, too, as you can see from this photograph of an African American brass band. Be aware that historical records referred to your ancestors with terms that were common for the time period. These could be considered offensive today, but it is important to understand what they mean. B was an abbreviation for black. C, or COL apostrophe D, stood for colored. FPC was an abbreviation for free person of color. Some records also used FMC or FWC for free man or free woman of color. N or NEG stood for Negro. M or MUL was an abbreviation for mulatto, someone who was one half black. Q or QUAD stood for quadroon, or someone who was 1/4 black. OCT, OCT, was an abbreviation for octoroon, or someone who was 1/8 black. Segregation was a real issue, even in record keeping. African Americans might have been listed in a separate colored register, the back of the register, or in the regular or white register. In segregated records, if your ancestor is not listed in the colored section, check the white section of the record. Not all clerks recorded events the same way. Here is an example of a colored marriage register. The entries inside do not refer to the individual's race and are much the same as the marriage records for the white members of the community. This is the corresponding white register. Remember, if you do not find your ancestors in the separate colored records, check the white records too.
In review, our 5 success strategies are to go from the known to the unknown, search every available record, find all records of known family members, be aware of name changes, and study the local history. That concludes this presentation, 5 Success Strategies for African American Research. In summary, we reviewed the standard research process and illustrated 5 success strategies for African American genealogical research to enable you to find your African American ancestors. Please note that all the links and websites referred to in this presentation are listed on the handout.